Right.
Hi, I'm Double Speed Cake.
And I'm Fairy Cake.
And this is the Miss Cake's very late review of the fourth
so
episode
shit.
of Candy Bar Girls, which is Channel 5's reality show about lesbians in London that makes me want to claw my eye out.
Okay, I liked it, and DFC
The
fucking
whiskey?
hates it. You hate it. I like the whiskey. The whiskey is good. This is a good...
She's sick, so I made her something to
yeah,
make her feel better.
no, I'm sick, so you excused yourself and made whiskey.
I didn't make whiskey, although that would have been interesting.
I'm really...
The problem with this show is that there's no story to it. Each episode you can watch standalone because there's no real introduction to any of the characters at all in any of the episodes.
That's not to say that there aren't stories there, because there are.
No, there are.
So what we're saying
But
is
the production team is shit.
well, it's more to do with the continuity editing and the fact that no one has kind of directed...
Yeah.
They haven't looked at the right things, and they haven't explored the right things. Exactly.
There's so much there.
Instead...
And nothing gets done with it.
But the problem is, instead of this, we see Shabby selling t-shirts. Really bad t-shirts.
I found that part riveting.
It's just...
I found it completely riveting.
Even the computer is bored. Right. I still think that the show was far better than all the other episodes. Far better. The one
This
thing
episode
I
was
would
far
mention
better.
is that the pace was much better in this episode, and especially the cocktail making thing, and then the competition at the end, and the kind of friendly rivalry really just stepped the program up to a kind of what you'd expect, I think, from this kind of programming. The editing was fast, there was noise, there was kind of competition, there was joking amongst all the cast members, and they seemed to get on really well, and that was really nice to see. It's a shame that didn't drag out through the whole episode, but certainly this felt more interesting.
I think my eyebrows are too thick today.
Do you think mine are too thin? I wore a shitty beanie again, deliberately, just to piss her off.
I don't have any beanies, but I would have worn them.
You should have worn them.
Should we talk about the characters?
Do we?
Okay, so should we talk about...
Can we talk about the fact that Lee Lu, Lee Su, and Lee Lee, and Lee La, and all the other variations of Lee something that we got through? It's incredibly confusing.
We got very confused.
We got really confused. There's two of them, and they look quite similar, and they've both got a name that starts with Lee and then ends with something else.
They don't look similar.
They look quite similar. Maybe it's just because I'm trying to confuse
One has
myself.
short hair and one has long hair.
But we got really confused as to what their names are. But then we worked it out.
Yeah.
Because they're just dumb bitches.
Genius! That was the funnest part of the episode. It's like solving a mystery. You made an interesting point earlier. What were you saying?
Well,
about
the only reason I used to go to Candy Bar was for the slippery nipples. And now they're gone. So
No. When you... Yeah, that one. Read that out.
basically, no one is going to be asking about the crispiness of the wine.
Okay, because crispiness is not something you look for in a wine. Like, nobody's gonna ask if a wine is fucking crispy because it's not crispy, it's crisp. Crispy? Are you fucking serious?
For the
It's
people
not
who go to
cereal.
Candy Bar, I'm going to make like a really, really big assumption right now and say that this show is probably more likely to appeal to someone like myself, who is kind of, into cheap wine than it is DFC. I mean, I'm not expensive crispy wine.
Crisp.
Crispy. Does Twin Natalie ever get sick of being called Twin Natalie? Because she's always referred to as Twin Natalie. It must be really shit not to have your own identity. Seriously. I love the fact that Danny in the conversation, there was a conversation her and Natalie had in their flat, which is actually quite nice. And one of the things was they were on Gaydar, which appears to have like a monopoly on gay television shows in the UK. When they both admit that they don't use dental dams, and that made me feel better about my sexual health. So thank you, Natalie and Danny, for justifying my lack of care in the kind of
Eyebrow department. Okay, so let's talk about Shabby. Okay, so in that part where she's like selling her t-shirts or whatever, I was like, okay, so she's starting a legitimate business. She's got like something actually going on in her life. This could be interesting, right? Let's take a bet right now. We're never gonna hear about the fucking t-shirt company again in this show. But literally every time I think I start to like her, she does something that makes me go, oh, never mind. And today, well, in this episode, it was wearing, I suppose, a surgical mask on her hat.
Awesome, though. The best thing about that scene was when they shelled out loads of money for a trade show, and then there was a direct quote of, well, we didn't really know how a trade show worked. It's a little bit like that whole, you know, little Joe going to teach and then sort of being like, oh, I didn't know that I had to learn any maths and English for the teaching course exam. Sort of like, duh, obviously, really.
Actually, I did think that the little coming out story that Shabby told about her mum, that was quite cute. And I also really liked that bit where they were showing, it was this episode, right, where they were showing Shabby and her mum together. I thought that was cute.
Yeah.
It was nice.
She was quite a supportive mum as well.
Yeah, and it was nice to see that they've got a good relationship.
That was the bit I liked. I liked her then, but then she went and sold the t-shirts and
with
then
the
I didn't
surgical
like
mask on her head.
And I was just sort of like.
Okay, so that was Shabby.
We like Sam. Sam's a good manager.
Yeah.
She's really bright. She's intelligent, and she's trying to kick those girls into shape. And she's failing because they are belligerent and insolent, but that is okay because it's good to watch. In fact, actually, the tension between her and Alex is just generally. I mean, did she call her a bitch? Do you remember that? Like they had this proper sit-down meeting, and they're all sat there trying to discuss things. Lee Moore is late because I can't remember which one it is. Just she's late, and then when she finally turns up, they get into a bit of an argument with Sam, and Alex calls her manager a bitch. When is that acceptable? If I call my boss a bastard, I get fired.
You deserve to. But what did you think about the cocktail competition?
I already said that, like, I think that was the best thing for pace the show ever needed, because the problem is that when you're working with people's everyday lives and people kind of, you know, going about their everyday business, there's no, like, natural pace to it. It's very slow. And you can only do so much in editing, so the great thing about the cocktail thing was, like, it's fast, it's exciting, it's brightly coloured, there are lots of people there, and there's loads of rivalry and competition, so the cocktail competition was pretty much exactly what Candy Barn needed. I just wish the pace had been dragged out a little longer across the episode so that it had been a little bit more, you know, for the rest of the episode, rather than kind of...
I mean, the cocktail competition was fun, I thought, but, like, I do think that the show is just really boring. We don't, like, dislike any of the people necessarily. I just think that the show is bad. Like, the show is really fucking boring. And there's nothing that happens. There's nothing that hooks you in. There's nothing that makes you want to come back and watch it another day. In fact, if we didn't have to film these for the website, I probably wouldn't watch it at all.
I think I can agree with you on that one, actually.
Sandra D, what did you think about the... I really do wish that they'd given us a little more background or a little bit more warning about the baby and the partner thing.
It just felt weird, basically.
It's like they dropped it in there.
And then it wasn't even that they kind of plugged it earlier on in the episode. It does seem to be kind of a bit of a cannonball at the end of the show. Oh, by the way, not only is Sandra Dee having a baby, but her partner's been pregnant for quite some time. They've been together
17 months.
17 months. So she got pregnant after
they were
when they
8
did
months
it,
pregnant.
like 8 months pregnant, which is just crazy. And gay families and not just gay families, but women having babies together is something which I don't even think I've ever seen. I understand that obviously there's a possibility that Sandra and her partner didn't want their process to be kind of on camera, and that's a possibility, but I also know from having heard the rantage of various other members who were actually in the show, loads of stuff got cut. Now I think the editors probably thought that a storyline about, you know, a young stripper like Danny was more interesting to the audience than a story about Sandra, who's, you know, sort of a little bit older, and her partner having a baby. I don't think that's true, and I think actually they've aimed this show too young. There are actually really interesting stories that are going on with Sandra, and they're just completely stylized.
The twins, even Danny, like moving to a new city, coming out of a 3-year relationship. What's the other one? Alex and getting married, and I mean, there's a lot that they could have worked with, and they just didn't. It's really disappointing.
The really good thing about the show is that it will make straight audiences realise that actually
lesbians are really boring.
Are just as normal and dull and, you know, as everyone else, and I actually think in a way that's more helpful than trying to desperately discuss all of the issues around being gay. So there are two arguments there. So I think actually in the long run, programs like this are really helpful. However, it doesn't make it for something very entertaining. So it's like they haven't really got the right balance of issues versus dullness yet. You know?
I prefer the real L word. Anyway, so what would you give this episode out of 10?
6.
5.
Really? That's higher than I
Four and a
thought.
half.
Okay.
4. Okay,
So, well, you've been Devil's Food Cake.
and you've been Fairy Cake.
And we will see you next
Time.
time.
Yeah.
Bye!
Bye.